you think about all the conversation? I see you smiling quite often, and go ahead, Hal. Get your chime in here.
Well, good morning. Sorry I was late. I was on another call. So Kim's right, exactly what you're doing. I think it's awesome. It's hard. It's hard to be different. And I do the same thing. I've done it forever. I spent about an hour and a half last night looking at the BCHL league because I affiliated with one of the teams, and our team's in last place. And I start going through all the rosters of all the other teams, and it just reconfirms that the thing is that the team that has the best 5 players wins the game almost all the time. And regardless of what kind of systems you use or what kind of practices you run, if you've got the best players in the game, you're probably going to win. So junior hockey is all about recruiting the best players, and and the same thing in the National Hockey League. There's great teams and great organizations because they get great players, and they churn through coaches, but they still got great players. So when we look at, I watch some youth stuff. One of the things we've done a really good job here in the United States is teaching kids how to stand in line during practice and watch 1 or 2 other kids skate. And that just drives me crazy. But then again, I'm coaching 14-year-olds that are fairly low skilled. What surprises me the most is this, you guys are working the dog, fox, eagle, which is essentially sort of a triangle relationship. And I had to sit down last night with my guys and show them, what does this formation look like? They don't know. It's a triangle. So as the puck moves around, try to stay in that relationship. And because this idea of high slot, which is perfect, which is the tip of the triangle, it's one of the corners. They all want to go to the puck. We end up with all 3 of them under the goal line. And we get the puck, and then we got nothing to do with it. And then we turn it over. And then they're 200-foot back checkers. So getting kids to understand the concepts of how to play this game, in my opinion, is very difficult. And because most kids don't even have the psychologists call it perception. We would call it players that see the ice, and but they're usually the higher skilled players. I think about skills I got a couple of kids on my team now that are starting to drive automobiles, which is really scary. And we learn to drive a vehicle, and we come up to a stop sign and we stop. We don't have to kind of think about it. We know that if we don't do it, it could be life altering or ending. But we do this in our subconscious. So a lot of the skill work that you're doing, Kim and Mike, and what I'm trying to do is develop subconscious level skills that become autonomous. One of the guys I coached with for a long time then talked about the game in terms of recognition of patterns and common reoccurring situations, zone entries, one-on-ones, two-on-ones, all the things that happen in a game. And eventually, just like driving a car, they're foreign to start with, but you suddenly now you can drive your car and text and listen to the music and talk to somebody in the car. Now, it's dangerous, clearly, in an automobile, but in hockey, I think the same thing, that once you master a certain amount of skills, you can suddenly, your game can kind of open up, and you can see the game. We mentioned, I think Mike talked about this. The kids don't watch hockey. They don't watch pro games. They don't even watch their high school team play. They don't, and what do? They're on video games and busy playing each other on video games constantly. And it's too bad, because I think that it's hard for the kids to really imagine the game in their head and then have people to emulate. Because I think having players that you look up to and you try to emulate them. We used to do outdoor hockey, Guy Lafleur and Rocket Richard and all these guys, heading up and down the ice on the outdoor rink. And, the kids here, they don't even know who's playing for the Wild, other than Kaprizov, because everybody knows who Kaprizov is. So I don't know. I think the world's changed. I think we've talked about this. And, we've got teams. I don't know what you guys do in Canada. The other night after our game, they got 13 kids on the bench, and nobody sits on the bench because there's 5 coaches, 5 walking the bench. And of course, I'm sure they're all dads of players on the team. And I'm going, how many coaches do you need? It's not a football team. So I think a lot of things have changed. And it's, for a guy like me, it's a little disconcerting, because there's such a limited commitment to becoming a better hockey player.
Speaking on that, Al, I went just to a local rink the other day on Wednesday, and I'm skating, and a kid about 12-ish, 11, 12-ish, he went on one of the other rinks, and he brought some obstacles and all this kind of stuff, and he was kind of doing the Connor Bedard kind of practicing all by himself. I imagine he was probably supposed to be in school, but he was on the ice because it was like 11:30. But I found that interesting. So there was a 11-year-old rink and a 75-year-old on the other.
Yeah, it's. I was working with a girl a couple of years ago, and she was doing amazing things. She was a U12, and she was doing some of the. I was giving them some drills that were higher. I was using some of the Bukach drills. I don't know if you've seen Ludik Bukach's quick hands, quick feet kind of stuff. They're different, so the kids like different. And I asked this girl, I said, Maddie, how did you learn to do that? Oh, she said, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. And I said, wow. And that's that open foot skating when you come up to somebody and rather than turning sideways, you just open up and go around, which is a very European style of moving around a defenseman or a goaltender, rather than keeping your feet close together and turning your shoulders and your feet. It's wide open, and it's very, very effective. And she just said, I watch YouTube. And I said, well, you need to demonstrate this for these other kids. But by the time they're 15 or 16, I don't know what you guys find, but their habits are so ingrained that it's really hard to change them, especially in a team practice setting where you have so many things you're trying to accomplish in the scope of an hour, or an hour and 15 minutes. And with short rosters, there's only so much you can get done. But like what Kim's doing, I run a lot of small area games, cross ice. I keep changing them up a little bit to accomplish different things. The 3-second hold rule, you got to pass it within 3 seconds, because the 1 or 2 kids will just go out and dominate it. I want everybody involved. So you kind of have to force things to happen without their kind of knowing how to do it. One drill I use, which I just love, I don't know if I got that from one of you guys, but it's a partner drill. So they're facing each other, and the one kid with the puck will pass it to the other kid, but they're moving back and forth widthwise. And they're trying to stay 20 to 25 feet apart. And the player with the puck will pass it to the other player, who will then take it and either do an escape one way or an escape the other way. And then take a couple of strides, and now they're going the other direction. And then he'll pass it to that player, who will do an escape one way or the other way, or a double escape, and then come back and pass. And then I added a couple weeks ago, pass to the feet, not to the stick. Passing a puck in a kid's, they need to learn that skill. And I've got a group of them that won't move. They just stand until I come out and I go, you got to move. Well, then last night I said, all right, now I've told you 20 feet. How wide do you think the rink is? 30 feet? 25 feet? I said, no, it's 80 feet, 80 feet wide. So you got to be moving back and forth in it. And there are so many skills in that drill. Think of the skills you got to have. You got to be able to skate forwards, transition backwards. You need to escape left, escape right. And if it goes into your feet, you need to be able to get the puck and kick it out and then do an escape. I mean, that's like 4 levels of skills as a warm-up drill every day. And I told them yesterday, we've been doing this all year. I'm not going to come out and correct you anymore. If you don't want to do this drill, if you don't understand how many great skills you're getting out of it, then I can't help you. And I'll be interested to see what they do tomorrow. We don't skate today. We'll see how they do it. But yeah, Kim, awesome what you're doing. I don't know if I can deal with bantams again, but maybe I can deal with younger kids and have some fun. But the parents are the problem, big time, because they want to win. We have a win society culture in North America. Winning is the only thing that matters. And,
Well, I did a modification.
it's actually the last thing that matters.
I just wanted to mention, related to what you're saying, Al, you talked about that back and forth transition skating drill with a puck, evasive turns and whatnot. That's deliberate practice. Tom talked about 12-year-old boy out there doing that deliberate practice. And Tom talked last week about Bedard when he was 9 years old, and he's going around Pylons in the hallway of his home as a 9-year-old on rollerblades. And they went to a holiday in Hawaii that he agreed to, only if he could take his rollerblades and hockey equipment. So the boy that Tom was out with, chances of developing a higher skill set, so he'll have more time and space to think and make decisions when they get to the teammate. So that deliberate practice is vital. But now the game-like practice where you have to make decisions using those skills is critical. There's that line between deliberate practice and game-like practice where your brain and the skills you're using are intuitive to the situation. And that's the balance. Many coaches, and I wrote this down as you were talking, how many coaches that you observe, Kim and everybody on board, are yellers? How many are tellers all the time, telling the kid what to do, when to do it? And if that's the case, they're never developing their cerebral part of decision making. They're trying to do what you told them to do. So there's that fine line between making sure they have the skill sets, and we've talked about that, as Kim did on backwards skating and all the skills that go into playing the game. But the art of it is letting them play and apply those skills without interference with their minds. And in play, they'll be that much better if you let them play.
A
If you
great
don't-
reason not to have cones and whatnot on the ice because they're not
Yep.
gathering any information from their environment when they do that, or
Yep.
requiring something where they have to interact with people. I think, well, what you're talking about is like a perfect example of how we want to go about our practices. I mean, there are times where you want to go through a drill where they have to be very specific on the skill and the technique. But otherwise, like, nothing gets me going further when you see like, it's the best way to call this, like a chain of events where it's one thing to the next, and you have to do this, then you have to do this, then you have to do that. Well, are they actually thinking, or are they really just focusing on doing what you told them to do, and there's no actual cerebralness? Grinds my gears. Like,
Yeah. So my only comment would be, in a vacuum, I really do believe all this is great. Like, and I mean, I think if people saw me from afar, they'd be, okay, this guy teaches the way he preaches, I think. But in my world as a advisor, in my world in working with multiple youth hockey programs, and knowing that we have such a, and this is all self-imposed, by the way, we have a limited time with the kids. And like when I'm working with 7 or 8 dads and moms on the ice, I just did a clinic down in a prep school this past Tuesday with the 10U team. And it was all about, every game was a constraint-based game. But there was a lot of cones. There were a lot of Edge Boss hockey gear out there. There were a lot of bumpers out there. And it was because I'm trying to speed up the process of them getting it. I think it's wrong. But right now, there's not the only alternative is to convince them that they should actually be in a free play environment every day, and to find the same money they're spending on going to 7 tournaments, spending $15,000 collectively as a team, and investing that in their kids' development. That's where the pendulum has to swing, because when you only get 2 50-minute sessions a week with the kids, in my perspective, from a business point of view, I need to go in there and produce something that looks like hockey, that keeps the kids moving and active, because that's what the customer is looking for. And frankly, that's what the coaches expect. They don't have, if they were in this room, they don't have the vision to see where this will lead. They don't have the ability to have I joke around with the people I work with. I'm like, I do have a crystal ball. I know exactly what is going to happen with your kids because of my experience.
Nope.
Can I fix the plumbing in my house? No, can't do that. But I can do this. And I know the trajectory of where your kids are going to go. So what I try to do is speed up the process by having, and I know, Wally, you don't like manipulating. So I'm influencing the opportunities on the ice with the kids and the coaches, because I'm trying to almost teach them together to see it. And the only way sometimes for them to see it is to build it and show the funnels and show the constraints and show where they should turn. Do I want to get them out of that? Yes. I would hope that in the drill planning that I do with the programs I work with, the progression is stuff starts disappearing. It's all there at the beginning. Like I remember, listen, when I was a first year, when I first got out of school and I started coaching, and I coached 8U hockey and mite hockey, I won a lot. I mean, I actually probably started making my living because I was such a good coach at 8U. I mean, we won everything. No team could beat us, but it was only because I was out there with a spray can, and I would paint lines and circles and X's and squares, and I would say, okay, guys. And this is full ice hockey. When you come into the zone, you must be standing in one of these areas. And I would just play the percentage game. Okay, when we go into the other zone, if you're standing in one of these areas, you're going to probably get the puck. And then you're going to have to do something with it. So I won because I was able to literally bubble hockey my players. And I can tell you right now, there's not a player, there's not a parent in that group that would ever say it wasn't the greatest year of their kids' lives because they won everything. But did they learn anything? Probably not. They might not even, they had no idea why they were there. They had no idea where they were following the lines. They had no idea why they were going at the X or the O or the triangle. They just knew they had to get there in order for them to be successful. So I think it's a fine thing to say, and I think that's where the Connor Bedard type stories and the pro, like I worked with, I have video of Trevor Zegras playing floorball in the gym at 10 years old with me, and why, and he looks exactly then like he looks now. The moves he's making then, he makes today. He was doing it on floor and with a ball, but his thought and his mental process was the same: escaping, protecting, deceiving. But all of that comes from doing it, having players that do it over and over and over freely and on their own. And a lot of us just don't have the time to allow players to do that because we're in a team structure with limited ice. That's my only kind of comment on that, I guess.
Mike, I'm glad you mentioned Bedard and Zegras. I evaluate the skill development, and those kind of kids won't put in the time, like Al mentioned, that Zegras and Bedard do. And you have to be crazy to get to that level because the repetitions required to get to that level are amazing. Now, my question is, how good are they at playing with each other? And as I talked about before you got on, Mike, how good are they at playing without the puck so the team can win? In other words, 200-foot awareness, responsibility. And we began the talk that way.
Yeah,
So,
and I was listening in, and I guess the one side of me says they don't need to. I mean, they just. I'm like, okay, give him the puck. He doesn't need. What the hell? What do you care? I don't even care if you go over the red line. I mean, I watched a team the other day play New York State, one of the New York State championship teams. They have a kid that literally does not go over the center red line. Well, it just doesn't do it. Their whole game plan is that he hides up there and between the red line and the blue line, stays on sides, gets the puck and rips pucks, and they win. And they don't need him. They don't need him back there. They play a game where they play 4-on-5. And if the coach is really concerned about it, they stick a kid on, like the little guy, the little defenseman on him, who can't cover him anyway. But I think it all depends on. But I do think you're right. Those players at the highest levels get there because they're crazy. Like they just do things that you can't make players do those things. You can't demand that your kid goes out and shoots 500 pucks a day. They're just doing it. That's who they are. That's in their DNA.
The kid that you mentioned plays in the neutral zone. I'm sharing a story here. Anatoly Tarasov years ago watched Montreal play, and he talked to, I don't know if Scotty was coaching them then or not, but he said, "Why do you bother to bring Guy Lafleur back into your zone? If he waits out there, somebody's got to stay with him." And you got 4-on-4. And so what you're saying is merit at that level for the outcome at that level. That kid, whatever age he is, playing that way, and he's going to play with different teams, different coaches, different players. It may help you win now, but what good is it for your overall development and understanding of the team game, which ultimately is to win as a team?
Right. No, I agree. That kid couldn't play in another system. He could only play for that coach.
Yeah. And I know I've had discussions this week about people looking at YouTube videos of young people we don't know and older people we don't know. And they're so skilled. They can bounce a puck and whatnot. But you don't know who they are, and they're not going to develop. They're so great individually. So there's that ability to be able to translate that into playing the game with your teammates. And right now, minor hockey, youth hockey, they don't know how to use each other. It's 5 1-on-1s because of that individual investment in skill development. The game isn't there's a line where they got to learn to use each other and take advantage of that. And I think in terms of the work that Greg's doing offensively, it goes beyond the one-on-one because of the game-like decision making within the structure of your practice and that balance. So anyway, any thoughts, Kim, Greg, Tom,
I
Al?
think Hal has his hand up.
Well, no, I agree 100%. And, I can go back to that team that had Blake Wheeler on it as a peewee and a bantam. They didn't win as peewees. They didn't win as squirts as much as they could have, because the coaches, the whole game plan was pass it to Blake and let him go score goals. Well, as he started to move up the ranks, it didn't work. And the other thing is, I think that the harm you do to the other kids on the team is, it can be devastating. And when I got a hold of him and that team, the first day I told him, this is not the Blake Wheeler show. You're just one kid on this team, and you're going to need to integrate your way in. I've seen this with a couple other teams also that I've been involved with as a coach. And I was part of a team last year on the girls' side where the coach ran his top 6 kids nonstop. And when it got down to the end, when it got down to when it really mattered, they got run right out of the rink because the other teams were playing 3 or 4 lines and he's playing 2. And I've seen this over and over again where and then the kids, I'll just, even in my own playing experience, because I relatively to where I played hockey, high school hockey and beyond, I was one of the better players. And you come up the ice and here's one of your teammates. Should I pass it to him? Okay. Whoops, nothing happened. Next, after a while you go, if I give the puck to that player, nothing's going to happen. It's bad. Nothing good's going to happen. So players instinctively figure out who they can play with and who to avoid on their own team.
And parents encourage that.
Skill differentials.
Yeah. And parents are aware of that, and that's where the problems begin, because you continue to develop a mentality like that. And the idea of creating some chemistry and people that can play together, I'm not sure at what age that happens. So I don't know, Kim, when you create whole ice line combinations at U9, I don't think that's going to be valid, but you've coached up the ladder. At what age do you look at who plays with who, creating a chemistry of comfort with one another and complementing one another?
It's interesting because I talk about it with our coaches all the time. And I mean, it's never been wrong for me. It's always been true. And I know Tim's not here to call me on that. If I put the best 3 players on the same line, they dominate always.
Mm-hmm.
Has never been different. And yet, as coaches, right, we go, oh, well, they should be on separate lines because then we have balance. But in girls hockey, goal scoring is everything, right? So, one year I had 2 of the top 5 scorers in the PWHL. And on the power play, they were always together, right? And our power play was, 30-40%, right? But they were the two centers, and they were great centers. So often I wouldn't have them on the same line. But then, of course, as soon as I put them on the same line, it was like you took 2 Team Ontario players together, and instantly, the second you put them on the same line, they elevate. It's instant. You go, Sally, why weren't you playing like that before? Because Sally didn't have her buddy. It's not, and these are lovely humans, and they're their captains of their university teams now, and they are wonderful. But all of a sudden, they had someone who was at their level. And so it's interesting that, now I'm consulting so many of our coaches, and, we have 2 players that I would say would be exceptional. And I would say in the 15 years I've coached here, we've probably had 5 of them. We just happen to have 2 of them right now who are the same age and on the same team. And they don't get played on the same line. And that team just happens to be, you know, one of the top 5 in the province, and they're doing fine. But every game I watch, I'm like, coach, just do it. Just put them there. It will be like, even if they never practice together, I guarantee you it will be instant fire, instantly. So, but who does that benefit is the ultimate question. Well, I don't know. I mean, you're going to win the game. It benefits those 2 kids. I don't think it's detrimental to the other kids, to be quite fair. And when I look at my little 6-year-old daughter on our U9B team, she's in the bottom third. I mean, she's 2 years younger than everybody else. I'm okay with that. She seems like it is what it is, right? I know who the top 6 kids are, and like, they're nice, and they'll like pass it to her and wait for her to pass it back. But like,
Kim, how do
it's a
they develop?
meritocracy, man. Like,
Kim, I can see you and hear you leaning to shortening the bench. Let the
no,
best.
never.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, when you put the best together, I like the idea of making sure they have a chance on the power play together. At what age do the others not, how do they learn if they don't get to kill a penalty or play the power play?
Well, yeah, that's not in the that doesn't exclude that. So this is what I would say, Wally. Like, in practices, and I have done this year, right? I will, if we have 3 stations, the best kids are doing the station together, the middle kids are doing the station together, the lesser skilled are doing it together, and it's fantastic, right? My kid is with her peers, and she can hold on to the puck with those peers, and she can protect it with those peers. But if I put her in the top group, she cannot. And the top kids are not challenged by her. That's just the reality of the situation. So we promote those things in practice, right? And listen, there's a dad on the glass who's like, Sally should be in the top group. That's always going to be there, right? But then in a game situation, why do we not do that? Why don't I just send out the 5 of them? Well, if I wanted the 5 least skilled players to play well together, I would probably leave them together. They're relatively the same, right? So the argument goes, okay, if you've got the 4 least skilled players and the best kid all on the ice together, the best kid's doing all the work. She's skating after everything because she feels she can, and she's going to feel the need to, and she's going to get a lot of success by doing that. The 4 others don't have to do anything, right? If they're not with their right peer group, they're just accessories, right? So the relatively balancing of the line doesn't benefit the least skilled kids on the team because they're just pylons. They're just the third wheel, right? But I would say, and I don't know the answer, Wally, but I would say in the majority of the teams I've coached, when I look at the forward lines, I have 2 that are very complementary, 2 that are strong together, and a third that I'm usually less sure of. So I'm usually operating by 2s and filling in the third spot. It's been rare that I've had a true, 3 that are really balancing each other that well. So I don't know the answer to that, Wally, like in terms of how I will do it with this age group. But what I see in practice is when you do put them together in these ways, they are infinitely more confident. In a game, if I put our bottom 5 out, I don't know, it's probably not going to go that well.
No,
but
Kim, what you're doing in the practice, I totally agree with. Totally. They're only going to improve if they practice and compete together in practice. If they go through stations in groups, if they got to learn to play together. Now, I'm telling you from my life experience, I rolled lines. I didn't put the best players together. And I'm talking at a very high level. And if you can win a national championship with 2 Olympians split up, never playing together, against a team that had 8 Olympians, it works. The confidence of the ability of those kids who I knew someday would play on the national team. They played together. There were enough. They were talented enough. They all got opportunities to kill penalties and power play. And we won a national championship. So
right, but Wally, putting the best kids together on the same line doesn't mean they're your power play. They're just on the same line. I'm not saying that's your number 1 unit. They're just on the same line.
I'm just saying I balanced the lines so I could roll the lines.
Right, but I'm saying in minor hockey, sometimes, and again, this has been my experience in consulting other coaches, right? So I say to them, they're like, we can't score. We're not winning. Great. I run all your practices. Those are your 3 best players. Put them on the same line. They say, okay, Kim, sounds great. They win the next game, Wally, and nobody's crying. They're not only playing that line. I don't say, put those 3 together and double shift them. The other 2 lines are fine. They might actually be better off, is what I'm saying. And again, I don't have a huge sample size, right? I have the teams I've coached where I put the top 3 together, instantly works. And the teams that I consult, when I say put it together, they get team success, right? And arguably those 3 are scoring the goals. I don't actually know that to be true, but it does ignite something within the team. Is it a long-term strategy? I don't know. But in girls hockey, where scoring is so outweighs everything else, then maybe it is a solution. And I'm just saying it's worth trying, as long as you, as a coach, you go, okay, well, that doesn't mean they're first to start every period. It doesn't mean they're first to start every power play, right? If you can put the 3 on the same line and roll them, I don't know.
Well,
Everyone's still getting the same ice time.
I didn't at that higher level. Tom Malloy, are you still with us?
Yeah. Well, the difference when you're coaching the extreme, you don't have any extremely bad players. Like with my team, if I put my 2 best players with 1 player who gets the puck and ices it every time she touches it, he basically takes them out of the game. So we've put 3 groups of 5 together of and it works better because like Kim was saying, they complement each other. We roll the lines on power plays, everything like that. I mean, we just go 1, 2, 3 with the lines. And speaking to the thing we were talking about before about players playing 1-on-5 all the time. One major thing I emphasized before every game is their players going to get the puck and try to skate through everybody. So we always back pressure. So we always make a defensive 2-on-1, and we usually get the puck back because we've done that. Because like we said, people do not pass the puck. Like our team passes, quite a bit better than anybody we play because we work on it all the time. We play all kinds of games where you have to pass and things like that. But I agree with what Kim says. I mean, if you're playing, Wally, and you played a lot, if you're playing with a play ender and you're moving the puck and you pass to the person and they give it away, I mean, they're taking you out of the game. So every line has kind of a different role. And what you do is you work with that player a lot, which I work with every single practice, to carry the puck. And I talk to her parents about working on, being able to handle the puck so that when she gets it, it's not a struggle. The puck and her all of a sudden become friends, not enemies. And then, the player will get better as the season goes along. And I'm seeing that right now. So.
Thanks, Tom. That gives a really great support to it. I think the art of coaching at any level is, it's chemistry. It's sort of who plays well together. And you use the term play under. I don't know how many play unders there are on your teams, but those play unders at U9, and will they be play unders at the next level?
Well, you work on it,
Yeah.
and you work on it to get them better. And the thing, and sometimes your 3 best individual players don't work well together because there's only 1 puck. Like Gretzky didn't work well with Brett Hull. And you would think that would be a union made in heaven, right? So some guys or girls just don't play well with other players.
Yeah.
So that's always a search, is who plays well together.
I have a story related to and I know Haley wouldn't mind me sharing this, but when Haley first joined the team, I could see how driven she was, how individually skilled she was. And her drive, her dedication, her commitment to doing everything the right way actually separated her socially from the team environment. She worked harder than anybody, ate right, just did everything right. When she was on the ice, people would generalize, well, she didn't pass. It wasn't that she didn't pass, she didn't understand the importance of passing. And I was at odds with how am I going to deal with her? So I phoned Cal Botterill, Jennifer's father, and asked, Cal worked with, and I worked together on the 88 men's team. And Cal was their sports psychologist. And Cal commented that Haley had scored higher than over 200,000 athletes who have done the Tom Tutko test on intangible traits of an elite athlete. And the one trait she scored highest in was intensity. She just did everything with such focus and drive. And he told me, treat it as a gift. And so my approach, and I fell into it, and Tom's since done the same thing. My approach, I bought a duck call, and I told Haley, when the game's on, I'm on the bench, and I see people open, and you're not sharing the puck or moving it ahead, you're going to hear the duck call. And she smiled. And it worked. She began, she became a better part of the team, still driven, but aware of the problem of being too narrowly focused by being too intense. So the art of chemistry and creating that awareness, coaches deal with it. You develop everybody's skills at practice. And Kim, what you've done, 3 skill groups, a number of stations, they work together, they compete together, they get better, make each other better, and they can do higher level skill practice than the lower end group. And we started this program in Cochrane, and we call the 3 skill groups Eagles, highest skill, Hawks, middle group, Falcons, younger group. And they would rotate between the 3 stations of practice. One was a skill station, one was a compete station, and the other was a game station. Finishing at your station with 3 cross-ice scrimmages at once, with the Eagles playing Eagles, Hawks playing Hawks, Falcons playing Falcons. So the idea at practice in doing that is absolutely critical. And the art, I think, is being able to get your better players to complement without anybody losing belief in themselves. That's an art. So I think everybody on board has faced that. It's a talent gap.
Well, it's getting them challenged appropriately. And again, it's like I'm right in it and my kid's in it and she's the youngest kid. Yeah. And like I at no time want her to start going, oh my God, I'm not good enough. I'm going to throw the puck away. Like I do not want that thought to come into her head, even though like she has almost scored on our net more times than I can even count because we told her to skate, but she doesn't know where to skate. So she's just skating and she's like skating right towards our net with the puck. I'm like, okay, well, like you're open, but you're going the wrong way. Right. But she's like, but then 10 games in, she does a weight shift around 3 kids and scores. I'm like, who the hell is that child? Oh, that was my kid. I didn't even know that was in her. Right. But I just mean it to say that what I see most typically, with those players who are in the bottom tier in girls hockey, and this is at every age group all the way up, is that they have a learned behavior to play hot potato hockey or not possess it because either someone's told them, They're not stupid. They see that they're in the bottom third or whatever it is. They are not playing with confidence. They are not being a problem solver. They are just passing the problem to someone else. Here, you take it. I'm going to throw this puck away. Right. So it's interesting to see how it develops. Right. But it's not, I'm sure my daughter could tell you who the best players on the team are. Like, on her opinion, she'd probably be right. No one said that. No one's like talked about it, but she's watched very little hockey. She knows very little about the sport. And I guarantee you can say, oh, that kid and that kid and that kid and that kid. Right. So it's not a mystery. No one's going to be offended. She knows she's not one of them. Right. So it's an interest. Like I said, I'm in the learning phase and I got to jump off. But we'll see how the full ice game goes. I wonder how many breakaways we're going to give up. It's going to be fun. Or get. You know what? We'll see. But it's I actually just thought, like, how boring is this for the goalies now?
Oh,
like, oh my God. At least before they were getting shots. Like, I just
from your own daughter, but that's okay. I mean,
she didn't score any on her own net.
But it's always, listen, you always got to be ready and active, right? But I still to this day can't understand like the fascination with getting to real hockey quicker, because it's so much more boring. And again, I'm almost at a point where I'll give up on the elite. Like, if you're perceived to be the elite 10U team, like if you're the team at full ice, that's the best team in the building, the best 15 kids. You're the best. Go nuts. But everybody else would benefit so much more and play so much more and just have so much more fun. But we've done something where we can't get people to visualize that bumpers and boards in the middle of an ice surface in an NHL size rink is bad.
And I agree completely now that I've been in it. And I always thought it was a good idea. I just had never experienced it personally. But this transition in the middle of the season is I'm teaching a different sport right now, Mike. Like, This is the part I don't see the value, especially in spending the next 3 months playing full ice hockey. Like, why not just take the half ice to the end of the season, and then starting in September, be like, okay, here's what offside is. Like, I just don't see the point in this middle of the year transition.
The joke in USA Hockey was, well, how are my kids going to go from 8U to 9U and then learn offsides? I go, you know when they'll learn offsides? The first time they're offsides. And they learn it. The first time they're offsides, everyone screams at them. The ref gives them, like, what, you don't know what you're doing? Like, everyone, and then they go, oh, you mean I can't go over the blue line before the puck? No. Oh, okay, got it. I don't need to teach it. I don't need to scheme it.
And it doesn't need to be in the middle of the year. Like, no, it's like,
it's so hard. It's I think it's just placates to real hockey and, people that want to, I'm like, well, when does it end? Like, what do you mean? You want to do it because next year they won't be ready unless you do it this year. Well, then what happens at 12U? And then what happens at 15? Like, where is that? Like, why are you speeding it up? Like, why do we as parents and organize, why do we want to speed it up? Just take it for what it is at the time it is. But it's great. Unless, like I said, we've had these conversations earlier. Unless somebody goes out and builds their own rinks, then you can't, you're fighting, you can't change the system because you're within, you're competing within the same rink as the system that everybody sees as the winner. So you can't hide it.
Well, the best part, Mike, though, that's like, and again, in Ontario, like, the girls are a double cohort. So like, my kid is going to play half ice till January 15th and then go full ice for the next 3 years.
Right.
She's going to have to go back in the fall, right? Any kid who plays 2 years at U9, which it's rare, actually. Like, most of our kids on board at just U9 is rep. But like the 5 kids on the team that are minors are going to go back to half ice hockey. And then on January 15th, go back to it's not a system designed for the girls. Nothing ever is. But, I think now she's going to be like, wait, what? I go back to this other hockey now? Like, it's really another sport. But like I said, guys, it was good to see everyone. Thank you for
I got to run too, guys. Thank you.
Babo.
Okay. Thank you very